Hey guys, and tonight we're going to travel back in time to a place where the air itself seems to hum with creative energy. Picture yourself in a small, dusty town in northern Italy. The air is thick with the sweet, sharp scent of cut wood, the pungent aroma of resins and oils, and the faint, ever-present sound of a string being tested a note hanging in the afternoon. Sun like a captured butterfly. You're standing in a workshop, golden light streaming through a grimy window, illuminating millions of dancing dust motes. In your hands, you hold a piece of maple, so light it feels alive, and a tool that feels like an extension of your own fingers. Your goal is to create not just an instrument, but a voice. A perfect voice that will sing for centuries after you are gone. This is a world of obsession, of secrets whispered from master to apprentice, and of a relentless pursuit of perfection. Frankly, given the rudimentary state of medicine, the long hours, and the constant exposure to mysterious chemical fumes, you probably wouldn't survive this. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what we do here. We'd also love to see where you're listening from tonight, so feel free to drop your city or country and the local time in the comments below. It is always wonderful to see our little community of night owls and history lovers stretching across the globe. Now, dim your lights, maybe put a fan on for some gentle, ambient hum, and let's settle in for tonight's journey. You are a boy, not yet a man, and your world is the city of Cremona. It's the late 17th century, a time when life is both simpler and infinitely more complicated than the world you know. Your days are governed by the sun and the church bells, not by clocks and notifications. You wake to the sound of wooden cartwheels clattering on cobblestones and the distant lowing of cattle being led to market. Your first real memory isn't of a toy or a parent's face, but of a sound that cut through the morning fog, a clear, soaring melody from an upstairs window. It seemed to make the very air vibrate with emotion. It was a violin, and from that moment you were enchanted. Cremona, you learn quickly, is the beating heart of the violin-making world. It's a city built on sawdust and secrets. While other cities boast of their bankers, soldiers, or painters, Cremona boasts of its luthiers, the craftsmen who transform humble wood into vessels of sublime music. Your journey begins not with a chisel, but with a broom. You are an apprentice, and your first task is to learn the landscape of the workshop. You sweep piles of pale maple and spruce shavings, their scent clean and almost citrusy. You learn to organize tools you don't yet know the names of, placing them on racks with a reverence usually reserved for holy relics. The master of this domain is a man, whose name is spoken with a mixture of awe and fear throughout the city, Niccolo Amati. He is the third generation of his family to carry the title of master luthier, and his workshop is considered the finest in all of Italy, perhaps the world. To be accepted here is the dream of every boy who has ever been captivated by the song of the violin. The pay is, to put it mildly, not great. It is mostly in the form of experience, and whatever leftover bread and cheese the master his wife doesn't need. It's the 17th century equivalent of a very demanding, unpaid internship. You watch Master Amati as he works, his movements fluid and economical. He is not a young man, but his hands are steady, his eyes sharp. He can spot a flaw in a piece of wood from 10 paces away, a knot no bigger than a pinhead that would ruin the resonance of a finished instrument. He taps a piece of spruce with a knuckle, holding it to his ear, listening for a clear, ringing tone. He calls it the voce, the voice of the wood. A common historical fact of the era is that the guild system was incredibly rigid. You couldn't just open a shop. You had to serve a long apprenticeship, prove your skill, and be accepted by the masters of your trade. It was a closed system designed to protect secrets and maintain quality. Your life is a sensory overload. The smell of hot animal hide glue, bubbling away in a pot over a small fire, is a constant cloying presence. It's a smell you'll come to associate with creation. The fine dust of ebony gets into your clothes, under your fingernails, and into your lungs. There are no safety goggles, no dust extractors. The only protection you have is a sturdy apron and a habit of breathing through your mouth when sanding. A slightly more obscure fact is that many apprenticeships were sealed with contracts that were almost like indentured servitude, tying the apprentice to the master for a set number of years, often 7, during which they could not marry or work for anyone else. Your freedom is a distant dream. Historians still debate the exact nature of your Antonio Stradivari's relationship with Niccolò Amati. Some documents suggest a formal apprenticeship, while others hint you may have been more of a skilled worker or even an independent contractor who worked closely with the Amati shop. The lines were often blurry. For now, you are just a boy with a broom, sweeping up the golden dust of creation and dreaming of the day you'll be allowed to make your own. You watch, you listen, and you learn. The secret, you sense, isn't in any one thing. It's in everything. It's in the sweep of the broom, the heat of the glue, the smell of the wood, and the unwavering focus in the master's eye. The days bleed into one another, marked not by a calendar, but by the slow, deliberate stages of a violin's birth. You've graduated from the broom to more important, if equally menial tasks. You are now in charge of the wood. This isn't just a matter of stacking planks. It's a sacred duty. The wood is the soul of the instrument, and Master Amati is more particular about his timber than a king is about his heir. He sends you to the timber yards by the River Po, where logs from the high forests of the Feen Valley lie waiting, seasoned for years, sometimes decades. You learn to look for the hazel, the tight, even grain of the spruce that will become the violin's top plate, its soundboard. You run your hands over the flamed maple, the gentle, undulating stripes that will make the back of the instrument shimmer under varnish like a tiger's eye. You are taught to feel the wood, to assess its weight, its density, its potential. You tap it, just as you saw the master do, holding it to your ear, trying to discern the clear, musical ring from the dull thud of a lesser piece. At first, all you hear is wood, but slowly, patiently, your ear begins to train itself. You start to hear the differences. This one has a bright, quick tone. That one a deeper, more resonant hum. It's like learning a new language, a language spoken by trees. Master Amati's workshop is a place of quiet, intense concentration. The only sounds are the scrape of a finely honed plane shaving off a translucent curl of wood, the rasp of a file shaping a curve, the gentle tap-tap-tap of a small hammer. Idle chatter is not encouraged. A joke might earn you a stern glare. A second one might earn you the door. The pressure is immense. A single slip of a tool, a moment of inattention, could ruin weeks of work, wasting a piece of wood that has been aging since before you were born. Your first real test is being allowed to prepare the ribs of a violin. These are the thin, flexible strips of maple that form the sides of the instrument's body. Your task is to scrape them down to a precise thickness, just over a millimeter. You use a scraper, a simple piece of sharpened steel, held between your thumbs and forefingers. Your knuckles are raw, your thumbs ache, but you learn to feel the thickness of the wood as you work, sensing the slightest variation. Then comes the bending. Using a hot iron, you carefully, painstakingly, bend the fragile strips of wood around a mold. Too little heat, and the wood won't bend. Too much, and it will scorch or worse, snap. The smell of heated maple fills your nostrils, sweet and slightly alarming. It's a smell of transformation, of brute force and delicate persuasion. You burn your fingers more than once, a quick searing pain that you learn to ignore. It's a rite of passage. A well-known historical fact is that Niccolò Amati, despite his genius, was the last of his direct line to be a world-renowned luthier. His son, Girolamo, was also a maker, but never achieved the same legendary status as his father. Paving the way for apprentices like you, to eventually eclipse the family name. It's a subtle shift in the city's power dynamics that you are, as of yet, too busy and too low on the totem pole to notice. An obscure but fascinating detail of the time is the sheer variety of tools, many of which the apprentices had to make themselves. Files, rasps, and knives were often custom-made for a specific task, their handles worn smooth by the grip of a single user. A luthier's toolset was as personal as his signature. Historians still debate the extent of Amati's direct teaching. Was he a hands-on instructor who guided his pupils' every move? Or was he a more aloof master who expected them to learn primarily through observation and imitation? The truth is likely somewhere in between. He sets the standard, and you either meet it or you fail. You succeed in bending the ribs without breaking them. Master Amati inspects your work, holding it up to the light, running a calloused finger along the curves. He doesn't smile. You've never seen him smile, but he gives a short, sharp nod. It feels like winning a grand victory. He says nothing, but the next day, he gestures for you to watch as he begins the most mystical part of the process, carving the scroll. It's the violin's signature, a spiral of wood that is purely decorative, but speaks volumes about the maker's skill and artistry. You watch, mesmerized, as he transforms a blocky piece of maple into a flowing, perfect volute, each cut of his gouge decisive and flawless. You realize you are not just learning a trade. You are being initiated into an art form, a tradition stretching back through the generations. The dust you sweep, the glue you stir, the wood you shape, it's all part of a lineage. And deep within you, a quiet ambition begins to burn. You don't just want to be a luthier. You want to be the best. Years are passing. You are no longer a boy. The soft down on your chin has been replaced by a rough stubble you scrape away with a straight razor each morning. Your hands, once soft, are now a roadmap of your profession. Calloused, scarred, with permanently ingrained dust in the creases. You've moved on from ribs and blocks to the main events, the top and back plates. This is where the magic and the math truly happens. You learn about tap tones, the specific resonant frequencies of the wood plates. The goal is to carve the top plate of spruce and the back plate of maple so that they are tuned to precise, complementary notes before they are ever joined together. It's a process of shaving off slivers of wood, tapping, listening, and shaving again. It's an acoustic dance that happens in silence. You use tiny, specialized finger planes, some no bigger than your thumb, to scoop out the inside of the plates, creating a delicate arch. The thickness is not uniform. It varies across the surface in a complex pattern that Amati has perfected. This graduation of the wood is one of the key secrets to the Cremonese sound. You are working with calipers, yes, but more than that, you are working by feel. You learn to flex the plate in your hands, to feel the stiffness and the give. It's an intuitive science, a kind of physical empathy with the material. You're not just carving wood, you're coaxing it to life. This is where you learn patience on a geological scale. One careless scoop of the gouge can make a plate too thin, rendering it weak and tonally dead. You have to start over. The wood you just spent a week carving, wood that has been aging for half a century, is now relegated to the kindling pile. Master Amati doesn't yell. He doesn't have to. The shame of the failure and the silent, disappointed look in his eyes is punishment enough. It's a brutal but effective teaching method. A common historical fact is that the basic form of the violin was largely standardized by the Amati family in the 16th and 17th centuries. They established the proportions, the arching, and the overall aesthetic that makers, including you, would use as a foundation for generations. You're not inventing the violin. You're refining it. A more curious, lesser-known tidbit is the use of water in the process. Some luthiers believe that the old masters would soak their wood in the local waters of the River Po, which were rich in minerals. The theory goes that these minerals would penetrate the wood, strengthening the cells and enhancing its resonance, a sort of natural petrification process. Historians still debate how much of the luthier's art was science versus instinct. Were makers like Amati following precise, secret mathematical formulas passed down to their family, or were they relying on a highly developed, almost mystical sense of touch and hearing? It was almost certainly a combination of both, a perfect marriage of the analytical and the intuitive. You spend an entire season on a single instrument, and even then, it's under the master's constant supervision. You carve your first F-holes, those elegant, serpentine openings on the top plate. Their design is not arbitrary. Their shape, size, and placement are critical to the way the instrument projects sound. You learn to cut them with a fine knife, your hand steady, your breath held. The knife follows a pattern you've traced, but the final, graceful curve is a testament to your own burgeoning skill. You feel a surge of pride as you pop the wooden eyes from the F-holes, revealing the dark interior of the soundbox for the first time. It feels like you've given the instrument its sight. Then comes the assembly, the closing of the box. You carefully glue the top plate onto the rib structure, using dozens of small, custom-made clamps. For a few hours, the violin looks like a strange wooden sea creature. Once the glue is dry and the clamps are removed, the body is complete. It is a sealed chamber of secrets. For the first time, you hold a complete, raw, unvarnished violin body that is mostly your own work. It is light, fragile, yet full of potential. You tap it gently with your knuckle. It doesn't just make a sound, it rings. A clear, resonant note fills the quiet workshop. It is the sound of promise. Master Amati, passing by, pauses for a fraction of a second. He raises an eyebrow, a flicker of something approval. Surprise? In his old eyes, before moving on. In the silent, dusty world of the workshop, it's the highest praise you've ever received. A violin body is a marvel of engineering, a wooden resonant chamber designed to amplify the faintest vibration into a room-filling song. But without a neck and scroll, it's just a beautiful mute box. Now, your focus shifts to crafting the part of the instrument that connects directly with the musician. The neck must be strong enough to withstand the immense tension of the strings, yet comfortable enough for the human hand to glide along its length. You carve it from a single solid block of maple, the same piece you used for the scroll. The two are one, flowing into each other. The scroll is the violin's face, its most recognizable feature aside from the body itself. While Amati's scrolls are elegant and refined, you find yourself sketching new ideas in your rare moments of free time. A slightly bolder curve, a deeper cut, a more powerful masculine turn. These are dangerous thoughts, a quiet rebellion against the established perfection of the master. For now, you keep them to yourself, dutifully copying the Amati design. You learn the precise geometry of setting the neck. This is not a simple butt joint. The neck is fitted into a mortise, cut into the top block of the violin body. The angle is absolutely critical. A fraction of a degree too high or too low, and the instrument will be unplayable, the strings either slapping against the fingerboard or floating impossibly high above it. You work with squares and rulers, but again, the final fit is a matter of feel. You shave off paper-thin slivers of wood, test the fit, shave again, until the neck slides into the mortise with a satisfying snug friction. It's like fitting a key into a lock. Before gluing it in place, you must attach the fingerboard, a long wedge-shaped piece of ebony. Ebony is chosen for its hardness and density. It can withstand a lifetime of pressure from fingers and strings without wearing down. You plane the surface of the fingerboard until it is perfectly flat, with a slight, calculated curve or relief that will prevent the strings from buzzing. One of the jokes among apprentices is that you spend more time sharpening your tools than actually using them. A dull plane or chisel will tear the wood grain, and that is a cardinal sign. You spend hours at the sharpening stone, working up a slurry, honing the steel edge until you can shave the hair off your own arm with it. A common historical fact is that the necks of Baroque violins, like the ones you are making, were different from their modern counterparts. They were generally thicker, shorter, and set at a shallower angle. Most original Stradivarius violins today have had their original necks replaced to accommodate the demands of modern playing, which requires higher string tension and a higher pitch. A strange and little-known detail is the sheer physical strength required. While lutherie seems like a delicate art, it involved long hours of sawing dense hardwoods, carving with hand tools, and standing in one position for hours. Luthiers often developed chronic back and shoulder problems. You feel it in your own body, a persistent ache that you learn to work through. Historians still debate the symbolic meaning of the scroll. Was it purely an aesthetic flourish, a luthier's signature touch, or did its shape and mass have a subtle, perhaps even accidental, impact on the instrument's tonal balance? Some modern acousticians believe the scroll's mass helps to dampen certain unwanted vibrations, contributing to the clarity of the sound. The final piece of woodworking is the purfling. This is the thin, 3-part inlay tube black strips of dyed pearlwood, sandwiching a white strip of poplar that runs along the edge of the violin sit-top and back plates. It's not just decorative. It serves a crucial structural purpose, acting as a barrier that prevents cracks from spreading from the edge into the main body of the instrument. You learn to cut a tiny channel with a special double-bladed knife, then meticulously inlay the delicate strips of wood, bending them around the sharp corners of the cutouts. It is painstaking, eye-straining work. Getting the mitered joints of the corners to meet perfectly is a mark of a true craftsman. Your first few attempts are clumsy, the points not quite sharp enough. But with practice, your hands learn the rhythm, and the inlay begins to flow around the edge in a clean, unbroken line. Now the violin is structurally complete. It is a white violin, pale and naked. You run your hand over its surface, feeling the seamless joints, the sharp edges of the fifth holes, the smooth curve of the scroll. It is a skeleton waiting for its skin. The next stage is the one that is shrouded in the most mystery, the one that will elevate a Cremonese violin from a fine instrument to a legend. It is time for the varnish. Life in Cremona extends beyond the 4 walls of the workshop. In the evenings, when the light fails and the tools are put away, you and the other apprentices spill out into the narrow streets. The air, which during the day smelled of wood and work, now carries the aroma of roasting chestnuts, baking bread, and cheap wine. You gather in taverns where the candlelight is dim and the talk is loud. Here, the rigid hierarchy of the workshop dissolves. You drink and laugh with apprentices from other luthier shops, sharing stories of demanding masters and difficult tasks. And of course, you talk about violins. It's in these taverns that you hear the whispers of rivalry. The Amati name is supreme, but there are others. The Guarneri family, in particular, is a rising power. Andrea Guarneri was also an apprentice in Amati's shop, years before you, and now he has his own successful workshop. His instruments are powerful, perhaps not as exquisitely refined as an Amata, but with a robust, earthy voice that many musicians are beginning to favor. His son Giuseppe is said to be a wild talent, a man who follows his own rules. There's a friendly, yet intense, competition between the shops. It's a rivalry of skill, of innovation, and of secrets. Who has the best wood? Who has the best varnish? Whose instruments sing the sweetest? This competition is a powerful engine, pushing every luthier in Cremona to be better, to experiment, to strive for an unattainable perfection. It's a bit like the early days of the tech industry, with each workshop being a secretive startup, jealously guarding its proprietary code. You also begin to interact with musicians. They are the end users, the ones who will give your creations their voice. They come to Cremona from all over Europe, making a pilgrimage to the holy city of violin making. They are a different breed from the craftsmen, you know. They are flamboyant, emotional, and impossibly demanding. They talk about response, projection, and color. They want an instrument that can whisper a pianissimo and then roar a fortissimo. They want a violin that feels like a part of their own body, that responds to their slightest intention. You listen to them, absorbing their language, trying to understand what they seek. You realize that making a great violin is only half the battle. It must also be an instrument that a great musician wants to play. A common historical fact is that Cremona's golden age of violin making, from the mid-16th to the early 18th century, was a unique concentration of talent in a small geographical area. The Amati, Guarneri, and Stradivari families, along with others like Ruggeri, all worked within a few blocks of each other, creating an ecosystem of craftsmanship that has never been replicated. An obscure fact about Cremonese life at the time was the presence of a singing tower, the Terrazzo, the city's bell tower. Its bells were famous for their musical quality, and some have speculated that the constant presence of these tuned, resonant sounds in the urban environment may have subconsciously influenced the acoustic sensibilities of the city as luthiers. Historians still debate the level of collaboration versus espionage among the Cremonese makers. Did they share information and techniques for the good of the craft, or were they constantly trying to poach apprentices and steal secrets from one another? The reality was likely a complex mix of both, a frenemy relationship that benefited the art form as a whole. One evening, a traveling virtuoso, a man with a flamboyant mustache and an even more flamboyant ego, visits the Amati workshop. He has brought his own violin, a fine instrument from Brescia, but he has heard the legends of Amati. Master Amati, in a rare display, brings out one of his own finished violins. He hands it to the virtuoso. The musician tucks it under his chin, and as he draws his bow across the strings, a sound fills the workshop that silences everyone. It is not just loud, it is alive. It has a warmth, a depth, a shimmering, golden quality that makes the Brescian violin sound like a cigar box with strings. You see the look on the virtuoso's face, awe, disbelief, and naked desire. In that moment, you understand the power you are learning to wield. You are not just making wooden objects. You are making magic. You are creating tools that can channel human emotion into pure sound. The ambition within you, that quiet, burning coal, glows a little hotter. You don't just want to match the magic of Amati. You want to surpass it. The day finally comes when the name Amati no longer appears on the labels of the instruments you make. You are in your late 30s. You have a wife, children, and a reputation as a skilled and reliable craftsman. You've spent decades absorbing the knowledge of the Amati workshop, first as an apprentice, then as a trusted assistant. But the time for apprenticeship is over. You have saved enough money, scraped together from side jobs, and the occasional instrument you are allowed to make and sell under your own name, to set up your own shop. It's a terrifying leap into the unknown. You are no longer under the protective wing of the most respected name in Cremona. Your successes will be your own, but so will your failures. You find a modest space in the Piazza San Domenico. It's not as grand as the Amati workshop, but it's yours. The first thing you do is build your own workbench, solid and true. You arrange your tools, the familiar friends that have shaped your life, on the wall. The scent of your own workshop is different, less of the old, ingrained dust of generations, and more of the sharp, clean smell of fresh beginnings. Your first task is to make a label. It's a small slip of paper, but it carries the weight of all your ambitions. You have a printing press set it up. Antonio Stradivarius Cremonensis Faciabat Anno. Antonio Stradivari of Cremona, made in the year. You leave a space to write the year in my hand. Gluing that first label inside your first independent violin is a profound moment. Your name, Latinized for a touch of class, is now forever linked to this creation. It's the 17th century version of launching your own brand. You start by building instruments that are, admittedly, very much in the Amati style. This is what you know, and it's what the market expects. Your early violins are beautiful, well-crafted, and sound excellent. They are often referred to as your Amati's period. You are paying homage to your master, but also playing it safe. You need to build a client base, establish a reputation for quality and reliability. But in the quiet hours of the night, when the city is asleep, you are not copying. You are thinking. You are sketching. You are questioning every assumption you were ever taught. Why is the arching this high? What if the C bouts were slightly more open? What if the F holes were positioned just a millimeter lower? You are a scientist in a craftsman's apron, and the violins are your experiments. A common historical fact is that Stradivari's career can be broadly divided into periods. The early Amati's period was followed by a period of bold experimentation, leading into his celebrated Golden Period, and finally a late period where his work was often assisted by his sons. This progression shows a clear arc of artistic development. A more obscure fact is the importance of the label itself. Forgery was rampant, even back then. Less scrupulous dealers would take a label from a broken master instrument and place it in its cheaper one. The handwritten date and the specific style of the label were crucial for authentication, a practice that continues to vex experts to this day. Historians still debate when Stradivari truly found his own voice. Was it a sudden breakthrough, a single violin where everything clicked into place, or was it a gradual evolution over many years, a slow drifting away from the Amati model? The evidence suggests the latter, a patient, relentless process of refinement. The pressure is enormous. You have a family to feed. You have to buy your own expensive, aged wood now. No more dipping into Amati's vast stores. Every piece of spruce or maple represents a significant financial investment. An instrument that cracks or fails to sell is a disaster. There are nights you lie awake, the weight of it all pressing down on you. But the drive to create, to innovate, is stronger than the fear. You make a small change to one violin, a slight alteration to the thickness of the backplate. You string it up and play it. You listen. You analyze. You make notes. On the next violin, you try something else. You are in a silent dialogue with your materials. A conversation that will last for the rest of your life. Slowly, subtly, your violins begin to change. They are still recognizable as Cremonese instruments, but there's a new character emerging. A certain power in the lower register, a brilliance in the upper notes. It's the sound of Antonio Stradivari, and it's a sound the world has never heard before. You are no longer just iterating. You are innovating. The Amati's models served you well, establishing your reputation and paying the bills. But they feel like speaking with someone else's voice. You are now entering what future generations will call your period of experimentation. The most significant development of this time is your creation of a new model, a new form for the violin. You call it the long pattern. It's a radical departure from the more rounded, feminine shape of the Amati violins. As the name suggests, the body of the violin is slightly longer and narrower. The arching is flatter, less scooped near the edges. The F-holes are sharper, more angular, and positioned differently. Every single element is re-examined and redesigned. This isn't a whimsical change. It's a calculated acoustic experiment. You theorize that a longer, narrower body might produce a more powerful, penetrating sound, one better suited to the larger concert halls that are beginning to appear across Europe. The traditional Amati sound is sweet and clear, perfect for intimate chamber music, but you are aiming for something more. You want a violin that can fill a large space with sound, a voice that can soar over an orchestra. It's a risky move. Your clients are conservative. They know and love the Amati form. This new stretched-out violin looks strange to them. It feels different under the chin. It's the luthier's equivalent of releasing a software update that dramatically changes the user interface. Some people are just not going to like it. You build the first long pattern violin. The process feels different. The familiar rhythms of carving and shaping are altered by the new dimensions. You are on uncharted territory. When you finally string it up and draw the bow, your heart is pounding. The sound that emerges is different. It's not the sweet, silvery tone you're used. T.O. It's bigger, darker, more focused. It has a reedy, nasal quality in the middle register that is unusual. It has immense power. It's not perfect yet, but it's alive with potential. You know you're onto something. You make several more long pattern violins over the next decade, refining the model with each one. You adjust the arching, tweak the F-hole placement, experiment with the thickness of the plates. You are chasing a sound that exists only in your mind. A common historical fact is that the long pattern violins, made roughly between 1690 and 1700, are a distinct and important phase of your work. While not as famous as the Golden Period instruments that followed, they represent your definitive break from the Amati tradition and the beginning of your true mastery. An interesting, though less proven, theory is that this change in form may have been influenced by makers from Brescia, like Maggini, whose instruments were often longer and had a darker, more powerful tone. You may have been trying to combine the power of the Brescian school with the refinement and craftsmanship of the Cremonese. Historians still debate the commercial success of the long pattern. Did musicians embrace this new, powerful model, or was it a niche product for a select few? With most buyers still preferring the traditional Amati-style instruments, you also continued to make. The number of surviving examples suggests it was a significant, but not dominant, part of your output. During this period, you face skepticism. A wealthy patron, a count who owns several fine Amati violins, visits your shop. You proudly show him your latest long pattern. He looks it over, his expression dubious. It is long Stradivari, he says, as if stating the obvious flaw. The balance feels strange. He plays a few scales on it. He acknowledges the power, but complains that it lacks the sweetness he is accustomed to. He ends up buying another of your Amati's models. You are disappointed, but not discouraged. You know that true innovation is often met with resistance. You are playing the long game. You believe in your new design. You believe that the future of music will demand the kind of power that your long pattern violins can produce. You return to your workbench, the Count's words echoing in your ears. Sweetness is good, but power, you think to yourself as you pick up a gouge, power is better. You are designing the violin of the future, even if the present isn't quite ready for it. While the form of the instrument is paramount, you know that the materials themselves are the foundation of everything. You could have the most perfect design in the world, but if it's carved from inferior wood, the result will be a beautiful, but lifeless object. Your obsession with wood, which began as a boy in Amati's workshop, has now deepened into a fanatical pursuit. You understand that the secret to the perfect sound begins long before you touch a tool. It begins in a forest, high in the mountains, centuries ago. The spruce you use for the top plate, the soundboard, comes almost exclusively from the theme. Valley in the Southern Alps. This is a known fact among the luthiers of Cremona. But you are more selective than any of them. You don't just buy wood from a timber merchant. You travel to the yards yourself, sometimes even into the forests, to select the trees. You are looking for old-growth Norway spruce, trees that have grown slowly at high altitudes. The slow growth results in a wood with incredibly tight, evenly spaced growth rings. This density and stiffness, combined with its lightness, makes it the perfect diaphragm for transmitting the vibrations of the strings into sound. You inspect every log, looking for a perfectly straight grain, with no knots or flaws. You are searching for what the locals call resonant wood, or violin wood, a special quality that only one in 1,000 trees might possess. You tap the logs with a small hammer, listening for that clear, musical ring, the voci, that promises a future song. It's like a form of dowsing, not for water, but for music. You are living and working during a period that future climatologists will name the Little Ice Age. The winters are longer and colder, the summers cooler. This has a direct impact on the trees you are using. A common historical fact, or at least a very popular and compelling theory known as the Stradivarius and the Little Ice Age hypothesis, is that the uniquely cold climate of the late 17th and early 18th centuries caused the spruce in the Alps to grow with unparalleled density and acoustic properties. You are, in essence, benefiting from a climatic anomaly. You are not aware of global climate patterns, of course. You just know that the wood from this period is exceptionally good. It feels different in your hands. It rings with a special clarity. A more obscure and somewhat bizarre theory relates to how the logs were transported. They were often floated down the river, Po to Cremona. Some researchers have posited that this long immersion in water, followed by a slow drying process, may have altered the wood's cellular structure, washing out certain minerals and allowing for greater vibration. It's a kind of natural chemical processing. You might notice that wood that has made the river journey seems to have a certain quality without understanding the complex chemistry that might be at play. Historians still debate the extent to which you and other makers truly understood the scientific properties of your materials. Were you conscious of the effects of the Little Ice Age, or did you simply attribute the superior quality of the wood to a good year or divine providence? It's impossible to know, but the results speak for themselves. You are using materials that were, quite literally, unrepeatable. Your treatment of the wood, once it's in your workshop, is just as crucial. You stack it carefully, allowing air to circulate around every piece. It will sit in your loft for years, sometimes decades, slowly aging and stabilizing. You believe that time is one of your most important tools. It allows the internal stresses in the wood to relax, for the resins to crystallize. You are, in a sense, a collaborator with time. You can feel the difference between a 5-year-old piece of maple and a 50-year-old one. The older wood is lighter, more resonant, more willing to become an instrument. It's a joke in your workshop that you have wood that is older than your eldest son. It's not really a joke. You are building up a library of wood, a palette of tonal potential that will sustain your work for the rest of your life. The secret, you are beginning to realize, is not a single thing. It's 1,000 small things. And it starts here, with the patient, silent soul of the tree. The violin is built. Its form is perfect. The wood is acoustically sublime. It is a white violin, a pale ghost of its future self. Now comes the most mythologized step of all, the varnish. If the wood is the soul of the violin, and the form is its body, then the varnish is its skin. It is both a protective layer and a thing of beauty, giving the instrument its fiery, luminous color. But you and the other luthiers of Cremona know it is much more than that. The right varnish, you believe, can enhance the sound, adding warmth and complexity. The wrong varnish can choke it, turning a potential masterpiece into a mute disappointment. The secrets of your varnish are guarded more jealously than any other aspect of your craft. The process is multi-layered and complex. First comes the sealer or ground coat. This is a crucial, often overlooked step. You are not just slapping color onto the bare wood. You must first seal the wood's pores. This prevents the colored varnish from soaking in too deeply, which would dampen the vibrations. You use a translucent, penetrating substance that hardens the surface fibers of the wood and creates a luminous, reflective base. The exact composition of your ground is one of your greatest secrets. Future scientists will analyze it with electron microscopes and gas chromatographs, and they will find a complex cocktail of proteins, gums, and minerals. It might contain egg white, casein, or gum arabic. You are essentially creating a microscopic, acoustically transparent shell for the wood. It's like a primer for the soul. Then comes the varnish itself. It is not like modern, hard polyurethane. It is a soft, oil-based varnish, cooked slowly over a low flame in your workshop. The air fills with the strange, alchemical smells of linseed oil, pine resin, and other more mysterious ingredients. You are part chef, part chemist. You learn to judge the varnish by its color, its viscosity, its smell. You are aiming for a varnish that will remain flexible for its entire life, moving with the wood as it expands and contracts with changes in humidity. It must be tough enough to protect from wear, but not so hard that it constricts the sound. It's a delicate balancing act. The ingredients are the subject of endless speculation. Of course, there is linseed oil and resin from pine or fir trees. But what else? Rumors and legends will abound for centuries. Did you add amber, ground into a fine powder, for its hardness and luster? Did you add propolis, a resinous mixture that bees produce for its preservative qualities? A common historical fact is that the beauty and transparency of the Cremonese varnishes have never been perfectly replicated. While modern makers can create excellent varnishes, the specific luminous, three-dimensional quality of a Stradivari or a Guarneri finish remains elusive. A far more bizarre and obscure theory, one that pops up from time to time, is that the secret ingredient was bugs, or rather, a chemical used to treat the wood against woodworm infestation. Some chemical analyses have found traces of minerals, like borax or chromium, which could have been part of a preservative treatment that incidentally had a profound effect on the wood's acoustic properties. Imagine your secret ingredient not being some magical tree sap, but a 17th century can of Raid. Historians still debate whether the varnish's acoustic effect was intentional or a happy accident. Were you meticulously formulating a varnish to shape the tone, or were you simply trying to create a beautiful and durable coating? And the sonic benefits were a fortunate byproduct of the materials available at the time? You apply the varnish in multiple thin layers, using a soft brush. Each layer must be allowed to dry completely, a process that can take weeks depending on the weather. You hang the violins up to dry in a special room, away from dust and direct sunlight. The sun's ultraviolet rays help to cure the oil varnish and bring out the depth of the color, which ranges from a pale honey gold to a deep fiery orange red. The color itself comes from pigments, finely ground minerals, or organic matter root suspended in the oil. As you apply the final coats, the violin transforms. The flame of the maple on the back seems to leap out, shifting and shimmering as you turn the instrument in the light. It is no longer a pale ghost. It is now a living, breathing thing, glowing with an inner fire. You have given it its skin, and sealed within that skin, between the varnish and the wood, lie your secrets. The year is now 1700. You are approaching 60 years old, an age when many men are slowing down, but you are just entering your prime. The next 25 years will be known as your golden period. The experimentation of the long pattern has taught you invaluable lessons. You've taken the power of that design and blended it with the grace and balance of the Amati tradition to create a new, definitive model. This is the form that will become synonymous with the name Stradivarius. It is slightly smaller than the long pattern, but larger and more robust than the Amati models. The arching is a sublime, shallow curve. The F-holes are cut with an unmatched elegance and precision. Everything you have learned over a lifetime of work has converged into this perfect design. Your workshop is now the most famous in the world. The name Amati is still respected as the old master, but your name, Stradivari, is the one on the lips of every musician and patron in Europe. You are no longer just a craftsman. You are a brand. Orders pour in from royal courts, from wealthy cardinals, from the most famous virtuosos of the day. You have a backlog of commissions that will take years to fill. Your financial situation, once so precarious, is now secure. A local saying in Cremona goes, as rich as Stradivari. It's a long way from sweeping the floors for bread crusts. Your shop is a well-oiled machine. You are the undisputed master, but you are not working alone. Your two sons, Francesco and Omobono, now work alongside you. They are skilled luthiers in their own right, having learned at your knee since they were boys. Francesco is the more dedicated and talented of the two, his work nearly indistinguishable from your own. Omobono is a good craftsman, but perhaps lacks a burning, obsessive passion that the craft demands. You also employ a handful of other assistants. You are no longer just a luthier. You are the CEO of Stradivari Inc. You oversee every stage of production. You still select every piece of wood yourself. You still finalize the critical stages of carving the plates and setting the neck. You still mix the varnish with your own hands, but the rough work, the sawing, the preparation of the ribs, the carving of the less critical parts is now delegated. This is the only way to keep up with the overwhelming demand. It's a bit like a famous artist's studio, where the master designs the composition and paints the most important parts, while assistants fill in the background. A common historical fact is that the instruments from Stradivari's golden period, roughly 1700 to 1725, are considered the pinnacle of his, and perhaps all, violin making. Instruments like the Betz, 1704, the Allard, 1715, and the Messiah, 1716, were all made during this time and are among the most famous and valuable violins in the world. A more obscure detail is how you managed your brand. You were meticulous with your labeling. During this period, the labels are beautifully printed, the handwritten year clear and confident. You understood the importance of provenance and authenticity. You were, in a sense, creating a system of certification for your own work. Historians still debate the exact degree of your sons' and assistants' involvement in the Golden Period instruments. While a violin from 1715 is labeled Antonio Stradivarius, how much of it was actually carved by Francesco? It's a question that keeps auction houses and experts busy, trying to identify the subtle hand of different makers within the workshop. Despite the fame and the pressure, your standards never slip. Every violin that leaves your shop with your label on it must meet your impossibly high criteria. You are in your 60s, your eyesight perhaps not as sharp as it once was, your back aching from a lifetime, bent over a workbench, but your judgment is more refined than ever. You can hear the potential of an instrument in the tap of a raw wood. You can see the final luminous color in the pale, raw varnish ingredients. You are the master of your domain. You receive letters from kings and dukes, praising the instruments you have sent them. Traveling musicians make your workshop their first stop in Cremona, hoping for a chance to play, or even buy, one of your new creations. You have achieved everything you set out to do. You have not just matched Amati. You have surpassed him. You have created what many believe to be the perfect violin. And you are not done yet. What is it, exactly, that makes one of your golden period violins the perfect sound? It's a question you ponder, and it's a question that will haunt musicians, scientists, and luthiers for the next 300 years. It's not one thing. It's the synthesis of 1,000 perfect things. It begins with the wood, that dense, resonant spruce from the Little Ice Age, aged for decades in your loft. Its cellular structure is a gift of nature, a perfect material for sound production. Then there is the architecture. Your design, honed over a lifetime, is a masterpiece of acoustic engineering. The shallow arching of the top and back plates allows them to vibrate more freely, like a well-designed speaker cone. This produces a sound that is not only loud, but also projects to the farthest corners of a hall without losing its clarity. The if holes, which you have perfected into a form of elegant efficiency, are not just holes. They are tuned ports. Their size and shape help to define the main air resonance of the violin body, the note at which the air inside the box vibrates most strongly. This gives a powerful foundational support to the notes played on the G string, creating a rich, full-bodied low end. The sound is a complex interplay between the wood resonance and this air resonance. You have learned, through decades of trial and error, how to tune these two main resonances to create a sound that is both powerful and balanced across all four strings. You don't use spectrum analyzers or fancy equipment. You use your ears, your hands, and an intuitive understanding of physics that you could never write down in a book. Then there is the varnish. That mysterious luminous skin. Does it really affect the sound? You believe it does. Remember that sealer, the ground coat you apply first? It hardens the surface wood fibers, which helps to amplify the higher frequencies, giving the sound its characteristic shimmer and brilliance. It's what musicians will later call the Stradivarius sparkle. The colored oil varnish on top is soft and flexible, so it doesn't choke the vibrations. It acts as a selective filter, slightly dampening some of the harsher, less musical overtones while allowing the core sound to ring through. It's like a sophisticated audio equalizer, applied with a brush. It smooths the rough edges of the sound, giving it a polished, refined quality. A joke you might make to your sons is that the varnish is like a good suit of clothes. It doesn't change the man, but it certainly presents him better to the world. A common historical fact is that blind listening tests in modern times have often yielded ambiguous results. Sometimes, professional violinists in a controlled setting cannot reliably distinguish a Stradivarius from a high-quality modern instrument, suggesting that the legend and the player's expectation are a huge part of the experience. An obscure but important physical property of your violins is their sheer efficiency. They are incredibly responsive. It takes very little bow pressure to produce a full sound. This allows the musician to play with a wider dynamic range and a more nuanced palette of tonal colors. The instrument works with them, not against them. Historians and acousticians still debate which single factor is the most important: the wood, the design, the varnish, or the ground coat. The consensus is that there is no single secret. It's the synergistic combination of all these elements, executed at the highest possible level, that creates the final result. The perfect sound is also a psychological phenomenon. A musician picks up one of your creations. They know its reputation. They see the perfect craftsmanship, the glowing varnish. They feel the perfect balance in their hands. Before they even play a note, they are primed to hear something extraordinary. And this expectation influences their playing. They play with more confidence, more expression, drawing out the best of the instrument's potential. The violin, in turn, responds to their skilled touch. It's a feedback loop, a partnership between maker, instrument, and musician that creates a sound greater than the sum of its parts. You see it in the eyes of the virtuosos who play your violins. It's a look of discovery, of finding a voice that perfectly matches the music in their soul. You may not understand the physics in modern terms, but you understand the result. You have created an instrument that sings. The years of the golden period are fruitful but demanding. You are past 70 now, a venerable age in an era of plagues and poor sanitation. While your mind is as sharp as ever, your body is beginning to betray you. The long hours standing at the workbench take their toll. Your hands, though still skilled, are beginning to show the tremor of age. You can no longer do all the work yourself, even if you wanted to. More and more, you rely on your sons, Francesco and Omobono. This is the natural order of a family workshop. The passing of the torch from one generation to the next. Francesco, your eldest working son, is your shadow. He has worked by your side his entire life. He knows your methods, your measurements, your secrets. He is a luthier of exceptional skill, and his work is so close to your own that in the future, experts will argue for centuries over which instruments are late-period Stradivari and which are early Francesco. He is the repository of your legacy, the one you are counting on to carry the Stradivari name forward. You entrust him with more and more of the critical work, supervising him, guiding him, but allowing him to take the lead. He is patient, dedicated, and a true craftsman. He is his father's son. Omobono is a different story. He is also a trained luthier and a competent one, but his heart doesn't seem to be in it in the same way. He lacks Francesco's intense focus and artistic flair. He is perhaps more interested in the business side of things, in managing the accounts and dealing with clients. You find his work requires more correction, more supervision. There is a quiet tension in the workshop, a sibling rivalry that is unspoken but ever present. Francesco is the artist, Omobono the pragmatist. You need both of them, but you worry about the future of the workshop after you are gone. Will they be able to work together? Will the quality be maintained? A family business is a fragile thing, held together by more than just glue and varnish. A common historical fact is that both Francesco Stradivari, born 1671, and Omobono Stradivari, born 1679, were luthiers who continued the family business after their father's death. However, neither of them achieved the same level of genius or fame as Antonio, and the workshop's prominence began to decline after they took over. An obscure detail is that you had another son, your firstborn named Giulio, who died in infancy. One can't help but wonder how the dynasty might have been different had he lived. You also had several daughters who, according to the customs of the time, would not have been involved in the craft itself, but were crucial to the family structure and social alliances through their marriages. Historians still debate the extent of your formal teaching of your sons. Did you sit them down and explain your theories on acoustics and varnish, or did they, like you, learn primarily through observation, imitation, and a lifetime of immersion in the craft? Given your secretive nature, it is likely you showed more than you told, and perhaps even you couldn't fully articulate the intuitive knowledge you possessed. You begin to collaborate more formally. Some labels from this later period are thought to bear the inscription, Sotto la disciplina di Antonio Stradivari, under the discipline of Antonio Stradivari, acknowledging the work of the shop under your direction. You are curating your legacy. You know that the instruments being made now, in the 1720s and 1730s, will be the last to bear your direct influence. You watch Francesco carve a scroll, his movements a near-perfect echo of your own. You see him tapping a plate, his head cocked to the side, listening for the tones, just as you have done 10,000 times. There is a pride in this, but also a touch of melancholy. You are passing on the craft, but can you pass on the genius? Can you teach obsession? Can you bequeath a lifetime of accumulated intuitive feel for the wood? You look at your gnarled hands, the tools of your life's work. They have one last chapter of work in them. You are determined to make it count. The legacy is not just in the violins, but in the hands and minds of your sons. You hope it is enough. The 1730s arrive, and you are now an old man, a living legend in your own city. You are over 80, then over 90. You have outlived most of your contemporaries, including your great rival, Giuseppe Guarneri, del Gesù, who, though much younger, will die just a few years after you. Cremona is changing. The golden age is starting to tarnish. Economic hardships and shifting musical tastes are beginning to affect the demand for high-end violins. The brilliant era of Cremonese lutherie is slowly, imperceptibly, drawing to a close. But you, Antonio Stradivari, are still working. Your output slows, naturally. You no longer have the stamina to stand at the bench for 12 hours a day. Your eyesight is failing. The fine, delicate work of purfling or cutting F-holes is a struggle. More and more of the work is done by Francesco and Omobono, but you are always there, the patriarch presiding over his kingdom of wood and varnish. You sit in a chair in the corner of the workshop, a blanket over your knees, even in summer, and you direct the work. Your hands may be frail, but your eyes, though dim, can still spot a flaw from across the room. Your ears can still discern the slightest imperfection in a tap tone. Your mind holds the library of knowledge, the accumulated wisdom of nearly a century of life dedicated to a single, perfectible object. The instruments from this late period are different. They show the signs of your advanced age. The hand is less steady. The scrolls are sometimes carved with less precision. The F-holes might be slightly less symmetrical. The varnish is sometimes applied more thickly, perhaps to hide imperfections in the woodwork. And yet, these late instruments possess a character all their own. They have a powerful, dark, and profound voice. Some musicians will come to prize these late-period violins for their unique, soulful tone. They are the sound of an old master reflecting on his life's work, imbued with a wisdom and melancholy that the brilliant, perfect instruments of the golden period sometimes lack. It's the difference between a poem written by a confident young man and one written by a sage facing his own mortality. A common historical fact is that Stradivari continued to work right up until his death at the age of 93. The label of his last known violin is dated 1737, the year he died. He was incredibly prolific, with estimates of his lifetime output at over 1,100 instruments, including violins, violas, cellos, guitars, and even harps. An obscure but poignant fact is that your chosen burial place was a tomb you purchased in, the Basilica of San Domenico, right across the piazza from your home and workshop. You would have looked out your window every day at the place where you would be laid to rest. Sadly, the church was demolished in the 19th century, and your remains were lost, meaning the world's greatest luthier has no known grave. Historians still debate the level of your personal involvement in these final instruments. A violin dated 1736 might be labeled as yours, but was it essentially a Francesco Stradivari made under your brand name and supervision? This hand of the master question becomes even more acute for your very last works. You spend your days surrounded by the familiar sights, sounds, and smells of your life. The scent of spruce and hot glue is the air you breathe. The sound of a plane on wood is the music of your days. You hold a finished cello, made mostly by your son's hands, but to your design. You run a trembling finger over the deep red varnish. You think back to your beginnings, a poor boy in Amati's shop, with nothing but ambition and a fascination for a sound. You think of the thousands of pieces of wood that have passed through your hands, the forests of the Alps you have transformed into song. You have created beauty that will outlive you, your sons, and your sons' sons. You have crafted voices that will speak to generations you will never know in languages not yet invented. You are tired. Your work is almost done. The final note of your life's symphony is approaching. The year is 1737. You are 93 years old. The workshop is quiet. Your movements are slow and deliberate, each step an effort. You spend most of your days in your chair, observing, your voice a raspy whisper as you give instructions to Francesco. But on some days, When a flicker of the old energy returns, you insist on doing a small piece of the work yourself. Perhaps it's applying a coat of varnish, your hand, though trembling, still remembering the familiar strokes. Or maybe it's gluing in your own label, your signature on a life's work. There is one last violin on the bench. It may not be the last one you worked on, but it will be the last one to be finished in your lifetime. This final instrument is a testament to your entire career. It has the powerful form you developed after breaking from Amati. It has the luminous varnish you perfected during your golden period. But it also has the slight imperfections of your late work, a mark of a master at the very end of his journey. It is imbued with a sense of finality. The wood itself seems to know it is part of the last testament. When Francesco strings it up, the sound that emerges is deep, resonant, and almost mournfully beautiful. It is the sound of a long goodbye. You think about the secrets, the famous secret varnish, the secrets of the wood, the graduation, the tap tones. You look at your sons, Francesco and Omobono. Have you taught them enough? You have passed on your techniques, your measurements, your recipes. But have you passed on the why? The intuitive, almost mystical understanding that cannot be put into words. You realize, perhaps, that the secret was never a formula. The secret was you. It was your hands, your ears, your obsessive mind, and a lifetime of singular focus, all converging at a perfect moment in time with the perfect materials. It is a secret that cannot be passed on. It can only be lived. And your life is now drawing to a close. A common historical fact is that after your death in December 1737, the workshop was taken over by Francesco and Omobono. They continued to make instruments for about another decade, but the magic was gone. They were fine craftsmen, but not geniuses. After their deaths, the workshop closed, and the great Stradivari dynasty of luthiers ended. A lesser-known fact is what happened to your tools and molds. Francesco was your designated heir, but he died only a few years after you. The tools, templates, and remaining wood were eventually sold off and scattered, while many of these precious artifacts survive today in museums. The cohesive system of your workshop was broken forever, its knowledge dispersed to the winds. Historians still debate why the Cremonese school of violin making declined so rapidly after the deaths of you and Guarneri del Gesù. Was it changing economic conditions, a lack of quality wood, or simply the fact that a concentration of unrepeatable genius had come to its natural end? Your final days are a gentle fading. The sounds of the workshop become distant, muted. The sharp smell of varnish is replaced by the scent of herbs and medicine. You are in your bed, in the house you lived in. For half a century, the house where you created your greatest masterpieces. You can hear the faint bells of San Domenico across the piazza, the church where you will soon be laid to rest. You close your eyes. You don't see darkness. You see the grain of spruce, the flame of maple. You hear a sound, a clear, perfect note, soaring endless. It is the voice you spent your life chasing, the voice you captured in wood and varnish. It is the sound of your legacy, a sound that is just beginning its long journey through time. You have made your final instrument. You have signed your last label. The master of Cremona takes a final, shallow breath and is silent. The workshop falls quiet. Your story does not end with your last breath. In many ways, it has only just begun. The body you leave behind is interred in its tomb, and your workshop's light is extinguished. But the 1,000 souls you crafted from wood and string are now scattered across the globe, each beginning its own epic journey. Let's follow one, just one, of your creations from the golden period. Perhaps the violin from 1715 you named the Allard. For a time, it stays in Italy, played by skilled but unknown musicians. Then, as your legend grows, it travels north. purchased by a wealthy French amateur. It spends decades in a velvet-lined case, a beautiful object d'art, played only on special occasions. It survives the turmoil of the French Revolution, hidden away in a country chateau while heads roll in Paris dot in the 19th century. It finds its way into the hands of the great virtuoso Delphin Allard, who gives it his name. He recognizes its power and brilliance. In his hands, the violin is no longer a rich man's toy. It is a concert instrument, its voice filling the grand halls of Paris, London, and Vienna. It sings the new, passionate music of the Romantic era, music you could never have dreamed of. After Allard, it passes to other famous soloists, each one adding a new layer to its story, a new chapter to its provenance. It crosses the Atlantic on a steamship, travels by train across America, and finds a home with a new generation of musicians. It is played in Carnegie Hall, its voice captured on early wax cylinder recordings, a ghost of a sound for a new technological age. A common historical fact is that the value of your instruments has skyrocketed over time. In your life, a violin might sell for a handsome sum, enough to live comfortably. Today, they sell for millions of dollars at auction, making them the most valuable musical instruments on earth. They are treated like national treasures, owned by foundations and wealthy patrons who loan them to the world's top soloists. An obscure tidbit is the life of the instrument itself. A violin changes over time. The wood continues to age, the varnish cracks and wears away in a unique pattern called craquelure, revealing the luminous ground coat beneath. Each violin acquires a unique patina, a visual record of its journey through time and the hands that have held it. Historians, or rather luthiers and scientists, still debate the very nature of the sound. They analyze it with lasers, they CT scan it, they try to replicate it with 3D printers and advanced chemistry, all in an attempt to decode the secret you took to your lost grave. The violin we followed, the Allard, now rests in a climate-controlled vault for much of the year. It is a priceless artifact, but it is not a museum piece. A young, brilliant soloist is its current custodian. Tonight, she will walk onto the stage of a concert hall somewhere in the world. The hall is silent. She will raise the violin, the same instrument you held in your hands 3 centuries ago, and tuck it under her chin. The light will catch the deep, fiery red of your varnish, the varnish you cooked over a small fire in your dusty workshop in Cremona. She will draw her bow across the strings, and your voice, your perfect sound, will once again fill the darkness, a living, breathing testament to a life spent in the patient, obsessive, and glorious pursuit of a perfect note. The sound soars, a bridge of music across the centuries, connecting the boy who swept the floor of Amada's shop to the audience listening rapt tonight. You are long gone, but you are not silent. You sing. The journey is over now. The last notes of the violin have faded into the silence of the concert hall, leaving only a shimmering echo in the air. The light in the small Italian workshop has been extinguished, the tools laid to rest, their work complete. The dust motes, once dancing in golden sunbeams, have settled on the old wooden bench. All that remains is the gentle, resonant hum of what was created there, a sound that has now become a part of your own quiet space. Feel the story begin to dissolve, its sharp edges softening as you drift deeper into comfort. The scent of pine resin and old wood fades away, replaced by the familiar soothing scent of your own room. The image of the fiery red varnish melts into the soft darkness behind your eyelids. Let go of the details, of the names and the dates, and hold on only to the feeling of deep, satisfying peace that comes from a life's work well done, a legacy secured not in stone, but in song. There is nothing left to do now, nothing left to strive for. The perfect sound has been achieved, and now it is time for perfect silence. Allow the gentle rhythm of your own breathing to become the only sound you hear, a soft, lulling cadence drawing you down into a deep and restful sleep. Let the quiet of the centuries envelop you, a warm and heavy blanket, and just drift